Good morning, students. Today we continue with the chapter of beliefs and buildings and thinkers. We are talking about some of the greatest contemporary thinkers of Buddha and Mahavir, and basically the enormous amount of contribution about to things like beliefs and ideology and philosophy, religion, the enormous amount of contribution that was made by the great men during the 600 years BC, that is before Christ, and 600 years AD. Okay, that is 400 years before Christ and 600 years after the death of Christ. So that's what we are essentially implying when you look at in terms of dates. So the Buddha and their quest for enlightenment. One of the most influential teachers of the time was Gautam Buddha, as we all know already, and over the centuries, his message spread across the subcontinent and beyond, through Central Asia to China to Korea, Japan, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, Indonesia, everywhere, right? And not just there in historical times, definitely it was in these geographies, but today Buddha is everywhere. And there's no country on the planet where you go to probably a curio shop and you would not find the small or the large or the medium sized statue of Gautam Buddha. Okay, it's because he is today known by everyone, right? You just have a small, even the small statue of a small terracotta statue of a man sitting in that posture with a certain kind of hair, that, and with that posture and with that robe, anyone anywhere on the planet would say, yes, he is Buddha. That's how ubiquitous Gautam Buddha is today. So, according to these traditions, Siddhartha, as Buddha was named at birth, was the son of a chief of the Sakya clan, and he had a sheltered upbringing within the palace, insulated from the harsh realities of life. So, students, this is a very famous tale and a fable where we all know about. There is no Indian who is not aware that yes, Gautam Buddha, or rather Gautam, had a very sheltered upbringing and a comfortable one. He was born in affluence, but then, his mind was always troubled by, certain the realities of life, what was real, what was unreal, and once, which, of course, the sights that we all know about, the sick man, the corpse, the old man, and when he was going in the market and on his in his carriage, the royal carriage, that is, that's when he saw and he realized the impermanence of everything, and he wanted then to find the truth, or the satya, the search for the truth. And then, of course, it graduated into a lot of things, and it made him what he ultimately became, a great teacher, and someone who is so enormously influential even after more than 2005 years of his death, even today. And Siddhartha explored many paths, including bodily mortification, which led him to a situation of near death. Guys, you have to understand that ultimately he was born as a Hindu, and that too in a country called India, where we already had, even if you look at when Gautam Buddha was born, that is 600 years before the birth of Christ, you have to understand that even in his time, there was centuries and centuries, because India happens to be an extremely old civilization. So even during that is 2,600 years ago, he still had a reference of then again centuries and centuries of civilization of India, where he felt that yes, this is what the old masters who wanted to seek truth had done. So he also entered into the world of extreme penance, prayers, and meditation, and literally killing himself in that process. But ultimately, he realized that yes, it has to be a middle path where you neither go into literally in a method of committing suicide, and neither you go into all the fun and frolic, and then you do not have time for meditation at all, and you do not have time to seek the truth. So, between these two extremes, right, that's where Gautam Buddha's middle path came. And he meditated for several days and finally attained enlightenment. After this, he came to be known as Buddha, or the Enlightened One. For the rest of his life, he taught Dhamma, or the path of righteous living. Now, the teachings of Buddha. The Buddha's teachings have been reconstructed from stories found mainly in Sutta Pitaka. Although some stories described his miraculous powers, others suggest that Buddha tried to convince people through reason and persuasion rather than through displays of such supernatural power. For instance, when a grief-stricken, this is a very popular trivia which is traced to Gautam Buddha, which is when a grief-stricken woman whose child had died came to Buddha. He gently convinced her because she thought that yes, Buddha being the great Buddha, he could do anything. He could bring her dead son to life, and that's why she went to her. She wanted him to bring back the life of her beloved son. And he gently convinced her about the inevitability of death rather than bring her son back to life. And these stories were narrated in the language spoken by ordinary people so that these could be easily understood. So, guys, yeah, you also know the second part of the story where she had gone to Buddha and she wanted him to bring her son back to life because she said that you are Buddha. If you want, you can actually do it. So why don't you do it? And then he had told her that yes, okay, if you are so rigid about bringing and I can see all your love for your son, but if you really want this to be done, what you'll have to do is something very simple. Go to the village and just bring me the person and find a person who where no death has happened over the past I think it was 1 year or 2 years, and I'll bring your son back to life. If you can just find me a family where no death has happened over the last 1 or 2 years, I'll bring your son back to life. And she thought it was easy, and then she went around the village with so much of hope because she thought, yes, this should be easy. Now, but every house she knocked and every door she knocked, she found that everyone told her that some dear one had died 3 months ago, some dear one died 15 days ago, some dear one died probably a year and a half ago, and there was no house left in the whole village where she did not encounter the same problem, whereby everywhere she went, she was told that someone dear had died within such a short span of time. And then she realized about the inevitability of death. And when then she returned to Buddha, and then she said, "Yes, I got my lesson. I understand what you're saying." So, and then she went away. So that's how the story has been told in some of the history books, of course. So, according to Buddhist philosophy, the world is transient and constantly changing, right? Like even in English tradition, we say the only constant thing is the change. So, it is also soulless, and there is nothing permanent or eternal about it. Within this transient world, sorrow, yani dukh, is intrinsic to human existence. Guys, that's what Buddha said, that it is impossible to have life without sadness, without dukh. And it is by following the path of moderation between severe penance and self indulgence that human beings can rise above these worldly troubles. And in the early forms of Buddhism, whether or not God existed was irrelevant. So, guys, I wish I was in class. I would have explained this, the strange relationship of Gautam Buddha with, the institution of gods and Bhagwan, and his typical and a very peculiar behavior of Buddhism, Buddha with And before him, if you have heard of this name, Adi Shankaracharya, that is, I'm sorry, after him, if you have heard of this name of Adi Shankaracharya, that is, Buddha was around 600 years BC, and Adi Shankaracharya was around 800 years AD. So almost 1200 years after um, Adi Shankara. Or after Gautam Buddha, Adi Shankara also had a very typical and a very strange kind of, though he was considered to be one of the greatest of the great, but then even Adi Shankaracharya had a very strange relationship with God, and the belief that was that always revolved around gods in India. Okay, so Buddha was no different. So the Buddha regarded the social world as the creation of human beings rather than of divine origin. Therefore, he advised kings and the Gahapatis to be humane and ethical. Individual effort was expected to transform social relations. The Buddha emphasized individual agency and righteous action as the means to escape from the cycle of rebirth and attain self realization and nibbana, literally, the extinguishing of the ego and desire. Guys, it's very, it's probably Buddha can do it, but we know it is never easy to let go of your ego, and it is not ego whereby we generalize ego as something which is only expected to inspire evil in us, and it's always expected to probably inspire us from into rather doing things which are harmful for others. So it is, or probably be very angry about certain things, and you tend up hurting people. So that is ego. That is what we normally think. But in deeper philosophical terms, if you actually, because you're in class 12 now, you can actually know, and then you would know that yes, ego is not just about that. Ego is so much about such an important element which gives you your identity, that is me, right, mera. So that is something, it is impossible to have that without ego. If you completely extinguish ego, then then what is left of you, you really have to be very evolved to really grapple with these dilemmas. And desire of course, इच्छाएं जो हम कहते हैं, and desires, and Buddha always said that yes, the root cause for all the sadness is desire, whereby our desires never die. They keep getting manufactured in our hearts and our minds all the time, 24 hours a day. We every time, as long as we remain awake, we are continuously churning out desires. काश ये कर लेंगे, अगली बार ये हो जाता, काश ये हो जाता, काश वो हो जाता, and so much of that. And that's what Gautam Buddha said, that this is the biggest reason for the sadness and the evils that exist among humans. And according to Buddhist tradition, his last words to his followers were, "Be lambs unto yourselves, as all of you must work out your own liberation." So rather than following a herd kind of a thing, whereby everyone is riding the bandwagon, and then probably you think you can outsource spiritualism, probably you can outsource liberation to some Babaji or some Fakir or some Gurudev or something. Buddha said it is impossible, right? You would have to look within you, and you would have to liberate yourself. No one else would do that for you. Guys, you have to understand, time of Buddha, India was full of great saints, right? Amazing saints, people capable of amazing spiritual powers, amazing feats, people who it is impossible today to believe that anyone could have achieved those. But then you have to understand that they didn't do it for Buddha. Buddha had to do it for himself. Everything he had to do on his own, right? Because he was looking for the truth. He could not have outsourced it the way we wanted to do it in the modern world of today. Thank you.